Some men are misunderstood because they stop performing for the room. They become quieter, more selective, harder to impress, and less available to every noise around them. From the outside, people call it distance. They call it arrogance, coldness, or loneliness. But inside, something different is happening. You're not withdrawing because you hate people. You are stepping back because you finally noticed how much of your energy was being spent on things that never gave anything back. And this is where the pattern begins. The independent man does not always look powerful. Sometimes he just looks calm, silent, and difficult to control. Most people misunderstand that because they only recognize strength when it is loud. But quiet strength is different. It does not beg to be seen. It builds a life that does not collapse when nobody is clapping. The first uncommon thing independent men like is silence. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they have learned how much noise can steal from them. Constant opinions, constant updates, constant conversations, and constant emotional reactions make the mind scattered. You thought silence meant emptiness. But sometimes, silence is the only place where your attention becomes yours again. You can see the cost of noise in daily life. A man wakes up and reaches for his phone before he understands his own mood. He spends the morning reacting to messages, headlines, gossip, and other people's emotions. By noon, he is already tired, not because he worked hard, but because his mind has been rented out to everything around him. Silence gives him his mind back. It allows him to think before responding, observe before judging, and choose before acting. This is not avoidance. This is self-control. The independent man does not need constant stimulation to feel alive. He knows that a noisy life can look full while quietly making you weaker from the inside. Most people confuse being alone with being unwanted. That confusion makes them chase company even when the company drains them. Independent men understand the difference. They can enjoy people, respect people, and care about people, but they do not need a crowd to prove they exist. Their solitude is not a punishment. It is a place where they return to themselves. This is why they may leave early, answer slowly, or avoid gatherings that feel empty. They are not trying to look mysterious. They simply know when a room is costing them peace. They have sat through enough forced conversations, fake laughter, and social pressure to understand that presence without connection can feel more lonely than being alone. The shift begins when you stop treating solitude like a problem to fix. Alone time can become a place for reflection, planning, healing, and honest correction. You do not become stronger by being surrounded all the time. Sometimes you become stronger when nobody is watching, nobody is validating you, and you still choose to stand with yourself. Independent men often like simplicity because they understand that clutter is not only physical. A crowded room, a crowded schedule, a crowded phone, and a crowded mind all create the same problem. They make it harder to see what matters. You thought having more would make you feel secure, but more can become another way to stay distracted. A man can own too many things, say yes to too many people, follow too many goals, and still wonder why he feels trapped. His life looks busy, but his direction is weak. Every object needs attention. Every unnecessary promise needs energy. Every open loop in his mind keeps taking small pieces of him until he feels heavy without knowing why. Simplicity is not about having nothing. It is about removing what keeps stealing from you. The independent man chooses fewer distractions, fewer fake commitments, fewer emotional debts, and fewer things that need constant maintenance. This is where freedom becomes practical. A simple life gives your focus somewhere clean to stand. Another uncommon thing independent men like is self-learning. They do not wait for someone to hand them a path, approve their curiosity, or tell them when they are ready. They read, test, observe, ask, fail, and adjust. Their education is not limited to a classroom. The world becomes a training ground when a man decides to stop waiting to be led. You see the opposite everywhere. People wait for perfect instructions before starting. They collect courses, save videos, ask for advice, and still avoid the first difficult step. They mistake preparation for progress, but the independent man knows that learning is not only consumption. At some point, knowledge must become action or it turns into another form of delay. Real learning changes how you move. It makes you less dependent on approval and more responsible for your own growth. You stop saying, "Nobody taught me," and start asking, "What can I learn next?" That question is powerful because it returns control to you. It turns confusion into curiosity and curiosity into direction. Independent men do not ignore society because they want to rebel against everything. They simply refuse to let the crowd become their conscience. They notice how easily people trade their values for acceptance. They see how many choices are made just to avoid judgment. And slowly, they decide that belonging is too expensive when it costs them their identity. This can make them hard to understand. They may choose a quieter career, a smaller circle, a different routine, or a life that does not impress people at first glance. Others may call it strange because it does not match the usual script. But a man who keeps betraying himself to look normal eventually becomes a stranger to his own reflection. The reframe is simple, but not easy. You do not have to become difficult to become free. You only have to become honest. Honest about what drains you, what shapes you, what weakens you, and what keeps pulling you away from the man you're trying to become. The independent path is not always loud. Sometimes it is one quiet decision repeated every day. Independent men often dislike needing validation because they know how quietly it turns into control. At first, approval feels harmless. You want people to understand you, respect you, and notice your effort. But when approval becomes the reason you move, your decisions stop belonging to you. You start asking the room for permission before you trust your own judgment. This is where many men lose themselves without realizing it. They change their opinions to avoid conflict. They hide their goals because someone might laugh. They stay in relationships, jobs, and circles that weaken them because being accepted feels safer than being honest. The cage does not always look like a prison. Sometimes it looks like applause. The shift is not to reject people. The shift is to stop handing them the final vote over your life. You can listen, learn, and respect feedback without making approval your oxygen. A grounded man receives opinions without becoming owned by them. He understands that peace grows when his self-respect becomes stronger than his need to be liked. Independent men often step away from overstimulation because they understand that a distracted mind cannot build anything stable. Too much entertainment, too much scrolling, too much noise, and too many quick pleasures make discipline feel unnatural. You think you're relaxing, but your attention is being trained to run away from anything that requires patience. The damage shows up slowly. You open your phone for 5 minutes and lose an hour. You try to work, but your mind keeps reaching for escape. You sit in silence and feel uncomfortable because your brain expects constant input. Then real goals start feeling boring, not because they are meaningless, but because your focus has been trained on cheap rewards. This is why reducing stimulation is not weakness, it is recovery. When you lower the noise, your mind starts remembering how to stay with one thing. Reading becomes possible again. Deep work becomes possible again. Honest reflection becomes possible again. The independent man protects his focus because he knows his future will be built with the attention he saves today. Independent men value connection, but they are careful with emotional dependence. Dependence begins when someone else becomes the center of your stability. Their attention controls your mood. Their silence creates panic. Their approval becomes your peace. This is not love, this is fear wearing the language of attachment. You can see this pattern when a man stops living his own life because he is waiting for someone else to choose him. He abandons his routines, ignores his goals, checks his phone every few minutes, and calls anxiety passion. Slowly, he becomes smaller. Not because love ruined him, but because he placed his identity in another person's hands. The healthier shift is emotional ownership. You can care deeply without collapsing. You can love someone without making them responsible for your entire inner world. A strong man does not use independence to avoid intimacy. He uses it to enter intimacy with a clear mind, a stable heart, and a life he does not abandon just to be wanted. Independent men are often less interested in empty competition because they do not measure their life by someone else's scoreboard. They may be ambitious, but their ambition is not fueled by jealousy. They are not trying to look ahead of everyone in the room. They are trying to become more aligned with their own direction, standards, and responsibilities. The mistake many men make is turning life into a performance of comparison. They compare income, bodies, relationships, status, attention, and possessions. Then they wonder why success still feels bitter. Comparison can make you win things you never truly wanted. That is the quiet trap. You climb, but not toward your own mountain. The independent man returns to a cleaner form of ambition. He competes with his past habits, his weak excuses, his wasted time, and his unfinished promises. That kind of competition creates growth instead of resentment. It brings energy back home. When your standard is personal mastery, another man's success stops feeling like your failure. One of the deepest things independent men dislike is self-betrayal. They may tolerate pressure, loneliness, criticism, and slow progress, but they cannot respect the feeling of abandoning themselves. Self-betrayal begins in small moments. You say yes when your body says no. You laugh when something feels wrong. You stay silent when your values are being crossed. At first, the cost seems small. You avoid an argument, you keep the peace, you make someone else comfortable, but every time you ignore what you know is true, you teach yourself that your inner voice cannot be trusted. After enough repetition, the damage becomes identity. You stop asking what you want because you have practiced betraying it. This is where discomfort becomes a teacher. The independent man learns to choose the difficult, honest answer over the easy, false one. He understands that peace without self-respect is not peace. It is negotiation with fear. And once he sees that clearly, he stops calling avoidance maturity and starts building a life he can look at without shame. This is where the real rebuilding begins. Independent men understand discipline differently. They do not see it as punishment or a way to look superior. They see it as proof. Every time you do what you said you would do, something inside you becomes quieter. You stop needing big promises because your actions start speaking in a language your self-respect can believe. Without discipline, a man starts doubting himself in small ways. He says he will wake up early, then negotiates with the alarm. He says he will stop a habit, then returns to it when the mood changes. He says he wants a better life, but his daily choices keep voting for the old one. The pain is not only failure, the pain is losing trust in your own word. The shift is to make discipline smaller and more honest. Start with what you can repeat: a clean morning, a finished task, a quiet hour, a promise kept when nobody sees it. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming believable to yourself again. When your actions and words start matching, your identity stops feeling broken. Independent men like boundaries because they know peace does not survive without structure. A life with no boundaries becomes a public place where anyone can enter, demand, interrupt, and leave their emotional mess behind. You may call it kindness, but if your kindness keeps destroying your peace, it is not kindness anymore. It is self-neglect wearing a soft voice. This shows up when you answer messages you do not have energy for, accept plans you never wanted, listen to disrespect because you want to avoid tension, or rescue people who keep repeating the same damage. Slowly, your life becomes available to everyone except you. And then you wonder why rest does not feel restful. A boundary is not a wall built from anger. It is a door with a lock, and wisdom decides who gets a key. You can be generous without being available to every demand. You can care without becoming responsible for every crisis. The independent man protects his peace because he understands that an unprotected life will always be managed by someone else. Independent men are not easily impressed by image because they have seen how often image hides disorder. A man can look successful, confident, busy, attractive, and socially admired while his inner life is falling apart. This is the quiet contradiction. Some people spend more energy managing how they are seen than becoming someone they can respect in private. The cost of living for image is exhaustion. You have to keep updating the mask, defending the story, and pretending your choices are cleaner than they are. You may receive attention, but attention cannot organize your mind. You may impress people, but admiration cannot give you direction when you are alone with the truth. Inner order begins when you stop decorating confusion. You clean the habits first. You clean the schedule. You clean the conversations you keep having with yourself. You stop trying to look powerful and start becoming stable. The independent man understands this clearly. A life that looks good but feels chaotic is not success. It is a well-lit mess. The next shift is responsibility. Independent men understand that blaming everything outside themselves may feel comforting for a moment, but it keeps them powerless. Responsibility does not mean everything was your fault. It means your next move belongs to you. That difference matters. Shame keeps you frozen. Responsibility puts your hands back on the wheel. A man avoids responsibility when he keeps repeating, That is just how I am, while refusing to examine what shaped him. He blames his past, his family, his ex, his job, his stress, his luck, and his environment. Some of those things may be real, but if he gives them permanent authority, he turns his pain into a prison and calls it personality. Responsibility becomes healthy when it is connected to power, not self-hatred. You can admit where you failed without becoming the failure. You can repair what you damaged without living forever inside guilt. The independent man owns his part because ownership gives him options. And when a man has options, he stops feeling trapped by yesterday. Independent men understand that identity is built through repetition, not emotional intensity. Anyone can feel motivated for one night. Anyone can imagine a better version of himself after a painful moment. But identity does not change because you felt something strongly. It changes when your repeated behavior starts giving your mind new evidence about who you are. This is why emotional promises often fail. You feel tired of your habits, so you declare a new life. You feel ashamed, so you swear you will never go back. You feel inspired, so you plan everything at once. But when the emotion fades, the old system remains, and the old system will always defeat a temporary feeling. The practical shift is to stop waiting for the right feeling and start building the right pattern. Repeat the action before you feel ready. Keep the promise when it feels boring. Return after a bad day without turning one mistake into an identity. Slowly, your life starts to believe the new version of you because it sees you showing up again. Independent men understand that calm is not a soft trait. Calm is power under control. Anyone can react when pressure rises. Anyone can shout, defend, panic, or try to prove something. But a man who can pause while everything inside him wants to explode has already gained an advantage. He is not controlled by the first emotion that enters the room. You see the difference in conflict. One man loses himself as soon as he feels disrespected. His tone changes, his body tightens, and his words become weapons. Another man notices the same pressure, but he does not immediately surrender to it. He listens, measures the moment, and decides whether the situation deserves his energy. This kind of calm is built through awareness. You learn to feel the emotion without becoming the emotion. You learn to let the first wave pass before you speak. That pause protects your future from your temporary state. The independent man does not confuse self-control with weakness. He knows that the strongest response is often the one that does not need to be loud. Independent men do not reject pleasure, but they refuse to let pleasure become their leader. They know that comfort can be useful, but it can also become a quiet trap. A man who only follows what feels good will eventually avoid anything that requires patience, effort, or sacrifice, and without sacrifice, purpose stays weak. This is why many men feel lost even when life is full of entertainment. They have access to food, screens, attention, music, and distraction, but no clear direction. Their days are comfortable, but not meaningful. They are constantly stimulated and quietly empty. The problem is not that they enjoy too much. The problem is that enjoyment has replaced commitment. The shift is to put purpose back in command. Enjoy rest after honest effort. Enjoy pleasure without letting it own your schedule. Enjoy comfort without letting it weaken your standards. The independent man learns to ask a simple question before he escapes into distraction. Is this helping me recover, or is this helping me avoid my life? Independent men often reach a point where being right no longer feels as important as being free. They still care about truth, but they stop arguing with every misunderstanding. They stop entering every emotional courtroom. They stop trying to prove their mind to people committed to misreading them. This is not surrender. This is energy management. A man can waste years defending himself to people who benefit from not understanding him. He explains, repeats, corrects, and negotiates until his peace becomes the price of every conversation. The strange part is that he may win the argument and still lose himself. That is when being right becomes another form of captivity. Peace grows when you learn which battles deserve your voice. Some things need to be addressed. Some things need distance. Some things need silence. The independent man does not let pride drag him into every fire. He knows that walking away with his mind intact is not losing. Sometimes it is the clearest victory available. Emotional independence does not mean becoming cold. It means you stop making your inner stability depend on how other people behave. Independent men still feel deeply. They still care, miss, love, and hurt. But they learn not to hand their entire emotional weather to someone else's attention, silence, approval, or rejection. Without emotional independence, every small change becomes a crisis. A delayed reply feels like abandonment. A different tone feels like danger. A quiet room feels like punishment. The man becomes reactive, not because he is weak, but because he has placed his peace outside himself. And anything outside you can be taken away. The healthier path is to remain open without becoming dependent. You can love with presence and still keep your center. You can care without chasing. You can miss someone without abandoning your purpose. The independent man is not emotionless. He is anchored. He allows connection to add to his life, not become the thing that holds his life together. Quiet confidence is one of the clearest signs of an independent man. He does not need to announce every move, explain every decision, or prove every strength. He has stopped confusing visibility with value. His confidence is not built from attention. It is built from alignment. His private actions have started matching the man he claims to be. This kind of confidence changes how a man enters the world. He no longer rushes to impress people who are not paying attention. He no longer performs strength while living in disorder. He no longer needs every room to confirm him. There's a different weight in him now. Not arrogance, not distance, just a calm certainty that he belongs to himself. And this is where the journey becomes visible without being forced. The independent man likes silence, simplicity, discipline, boundaries, purpose, and peace, because each one returns him to himself. He is not trying to become unreachable. He is trying to become unshakable. The difference is everything. One is escape. The other is inner order. The uncommon things independent men like are not really strange when you understand what they are protecting. Silence protects focus. Solitude protects self-awareness. Simplicity protects energy. Discipline protects self-respect. Boundaries protect peace. Purpose protects direction. And emotional independence protects the part of you that should never be handed away. Most people misunderstand this because they only see the outside. They see distance, quietness, selectiveness, and control. But the deeper truth is simpler. A man becomes independent when he stops living as a reaction to everything around him. He chooses what enters his mind, what receives his energy, and what shapes his identity. If this message helped you see yourself more clearly, subscribe for more calm, practical reflections on self-improvement, discipline, emotional maturity, and inner peace. The strongest man is not the loudest man. It is the man who can belong to himself without needing the world to approve.